Okay, I'm back again and I am ready to go with coral. Love the colours together. I love the colours together. I've put a slip knot onto my hook because whatever method I choose to start with, I'm going to need a slip knot. But I think this time round, I'll just go ahead and use the regular 3 chain to start. Okay, trying to find the beginning. Again, I'd say don't worry about the curling up beret. We're going to take care of that later in a miraculous blocking style. So I will start by putting my hook through the top of the first stitch from the round previously. Okay, I've slipped it through the slip knot so it's nice and secure there. So my first treble on this round will actually be 3 chain because I've told you before 3 chain counts as a stitch in this pattern. Okay, so there it is, secure, ready to go. Our next treble is going to go into the chain space. So we're going to be putting on lots and lots of stitches in the coming rounds. Round 6 all the way round to round 12. Pretty much every round bar 1 is increasing. So it's going to really grow here, kids. So with our chain space round, it just works where we do the increases. It's a little different, that is all. So I'll show you that anyway. So first treble into the top of the first treble from the previous round, 1 treble into the first chain space, 1 treble into the next treble around. So you're kind of alternating. Can you see where you put your stitches? Top of a stitch into a space, top of a stitch into a space, and so on, except here comes our increase. So every second space we work, we're going to put 2 trebles into it. All right, so we're never going to put 2 trebles into the top of a treble stitch. Our increases on this round are always going into chain spaces, and they're going into every alternate chain space. So you've effectively got 3, 1 treble, 1 treble. Yeah, you got 3 stitches before you increase. Let me do that again. So a treble into the top of this treble stitch. Oh dear, keep dropping it. Then a treble into a chain space, so straight through that lovely big gap. Then another treble into the top of a stitch. And now here comes our increase. 2 treble into the next chain space. Okay, so your increases are always in chain spaces and they're in every alternate chain space. So if there's a treble coming up, stick a treble in the top. If there's a chain space, it's either 1 or 2, and that's it all the way around. All right, so our rhythm is 1, 1 into a chain space, 1, 2 into a chain space. Ooh. Okay, 1, 1, 1, 2. That is our rhythm. Just make sure that 2 works into a chain space. 1, 1, 1, and 2 into a chain space. Okay, so let's just stop and have a look at what that looks like, and then I'll finish the round. Whoops, splitting my yarn left, right and centre. Okay, so there's a stay away hook. There is our starting treble, or 3 chain. So that's 1, 1, 1, 2. Can you see in the chain space? 1 in the stitch, 1 in the space, 1 in the stitch, 2 in the space. 1 in the stitch. Oh, have I done it right there? Yes. 1 in the space, 1 in the stitch, 2. 1 in the stitch, 1 in the space, 1 in the stitch, 2. And that's your rhythm going all the way around round 6. And if it all goes well, I mean, it could go either way, couldn't it, with me? If it all goes well, you'll end up with 60 trebles at the end. So let me whiz all the way around. I'll meet you at the end and we'll see whether that has worked. Okay, I'm at the point where the pattern changes slightly. It says we work that repeat until we've got 2 chain spaces left. Well, here we are with 2 chain spaces left. So with 2 chain spaces left, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 1 treble into that penultimate chain space, 1 treble into the top of the last stitch available, and 2 treble into the last chain space, and that will give me 60 trebles, and it does because I counted them. I cheated before I got to the end. Okay, so we've got 60 trebles at the end of round 6. Stay flat, just a little bit flat. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run through round 7, 8 and 9. But I'm just going to give you stitch counts and just show you the rhythm of the repeats for those. Okay, so very short instructions, I think. Right, let's close off round 6 in the same way as we've done before, which is we're going to put a slip stitch into the top of the beginning 3 chain from round 6. So we're closing out round 6 here with 60 trebles all the way around, and we're going to be starting round 7 in the same way as previously. So that is a starting 3 chain, which counts as your first treble. We're then going to put 2 more standalone trebles in, so 1 into the next stitch and 1 into the stitch after that. And now comes our increase, so we're putting 2 treble into this next stitch along. Okay, so that is our increase right there. So let's do that again. 1 treble, 2 treble, and 3 treble. And now our increase into the next stitch along. So that's our rhythm, as I said before. 1, 2, 3, 2. So 3 standalone treble and 1 increase. Let's do it one more time and then we'll have a look at it. So that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, and here comes our increase. Okay, and that is how you're going to work round 7 all the way around. So you've got your increase, your pattern is 3 standalone, so there's 1, 2, 3 and 2 into 1. So let's look again, 1, 2, 3 and 2 into 1. So I'm going to work round just like that all the way around, and we will meet at the end. I'm coming up now to the last little section. So 1, 2, 3 and increase, and I feel confident that it's correct because my increase is falling on the last stitch. I'm going to go around and double check it, but at the end of round 7 I should have 75 treble stitches. Okay, so let's move on to round 8 by the same as before, closing our round with a slip stitch into the top of our beginning chain from the previous round. And we're going to move on to round 8, which is going to increase our stitch count from 75, which is where we are now at the end of round 7. It's going to increase it up to 90 stitches, and the way we're going to achieve that is with a rhythm of 4 individual trebles and then an increase. So treble, 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 increase, treble, 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 increase. So let's do that together. Our first treble is going to be the 3 chain. That's going to count as our first treble. That's number 1. I always have to pull that apart a bit to see where my next stitch is. It's almost at the very base of that chain. Okay, so treble, 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 and increase. Now, interestingly, let me show you this. My increase is my next stitch that's coming up, and if you look, it's almost like the increase sits between the two stitches of the increase from the round before, kind of sits across the top of them like that. So that's another good indicator as to whether you've got it in the right place or not, isn't it? So 4 individual stitches, then an increase. Let's do it one more time together. All standard rules here for increasing circles. As your circle grows, you put more individual stitches between each increase. Okay, to open out the circle in a nice sort of gentle way. Okay, and I'm now done my 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm now going to increase, and if you can see again, increase is going to sit between the increase from the round before. So another little indicator that you're on the right path and your stitch count will end up correct. So 4 individuals and then an increase. So I'll see you at the end of round 8 with 90 trebles. It's growing, folks. Right, so I'm at the end, getting towards the end of round 8, and so I've got my last little bit my last kind of repeat of our pattern to do. So I'm going to do 4 trebles, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then, great news, last stitch is my increase. So pretty good, we know where we should be, and I have checked the stitch count on here. Again, just make sure you do, because we're in the next round we're going to jump up our stitch count tremendously, so you know, worthwhile making sure you end this round with the right amount. So at the end of round 8 I should have 90 trebles. I'm going to close off the round as before with a slip stitch and get ready to start round 9. Okay, so I've got my 3 chain ready to start. And our increase on round 9 is very different because we are jumping our stitch count from 90 all the way up to 135. So that little gentle increase like we've been working up to this point isn't going to work for that. That's just not going to give us anywhere near enough stitches. So I just want to show, it's not complicated or anything, it's just the rhythm is very different to what we've worked so far. So we're going to work in blocks of 5. And I will tell you what I mean by that. We're going to work, first of all, just 5 regular trebles, 1 in each stitch as we work along. So 1, 2, counting that first 3 chain as our first treble, obviously. 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And it does bring us along to where we'd expect to do an increase, because you can see it's in the regular place. Between the increase from the round before. So we put 2 in there. However, we don't now go back to single trebles again. We're going to carry on working 2 trebles, okay, into the next few stitches. So we're basically going to do 5 singles, then 5 increases, one after the other. So our repeat is a block of 10 stitches. The first 5 we just put one treble into, and the next 5 we put 2 into. So as you can see, quite a dramatically different way of increasing to what we've experienced before. So that's 3 lots of increases, that's 4 lots of increases, and full disclosure, completely tripped me up. I just carried on 1, 2, 3, 4. As we had been, and thought, hang on a minute, that's not enough stitches. So, you know, hopefully you've not made that mistake and haven't had to undo anything, because if you have, you will notice that frogging wool can be quite tricky. It's because the fibres are kind of hooky and they hang on to each other. So there you go, that is our first chunk or tranche or section or repeat, if you like. So let's just double check it again. I've got 1 stitch here, which is my 3 chain to start with. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 singles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 singles, and then I've got 5 lots of increases. So 1 lot of increase, 2 lot of increase, 3, 4, and 5. That is what our increase looks like on this round. 5 singles, then 5 increases. So go ahead and do that. Loads of stitches. It's all going to look a bit of a jumble. Don't panic, we are going to block it and it's going to work miracles at the end. So I will see you at the end of round 9 with loads more stitches. Okay, end of round 9 here. You can see I've got 10 stitches to go, and if I just move things out of the way, we're now getting at the sort of floppy sombrero stage, which is marvellous. I think hats must all go through different hat phases to exist. Whilst I do this last repeat, 1, 2, I need to tell you I had a little look at the history of the beret, and it goes back literally thousands of years, which was a real shock to me, I've got to tell you. They found evidence of them in burial tombs in Denmark and Italy, dating back to, I don't know, 3000 BC to sort of 600 BC, and then it was popping up in Europe between kind of 400 BC and all the way through to the 1300s, and then kind of in the form that we recognise it, sort of from the sort of 1700s and onwards really, and it became a fashion item, sort of an iconic fashion statement for women in the 1920s. Often, in fact, pretty much always made of felt, and bizarrely, given the kind of kudos on Paris runways, fashion runways, it was actually a peasant garment and made from felt, because felt was readily available. Felt, of course, being kind of wet and clumped together wool. And having found out that as a peasant, you're trudging through your day, you found some wet and clumpy wool, pop it in your shoe. Lovely, provides some protection against the elements. Well, the natural progression from that is hammering it out and making it into a stylish beret to pop on your head, isn't it? So apart from its humble beginnings and kind of fashion kudos, it's gone through all sorts of permutations. Obviously there's some quite political connotations linked to the beret. And who knew? Go have a read about it. You know, look it up. It's quite interesting, if I do say so myself. Okay, sorry. Here endeth the history lesson. I have now got to the end of round 9, and I've got 135 stitches going around there. Hence that sort of slight wavy floppiness. We need that. We need it. So don't worry. It's going to... I know I keep saying it, but you need to trust me that blocking is going to transform this into something rather beautiful. Round 10, we have no increases at all to worry about. Round 10, we're just putting one stitch all the way round, okay? 1 in 1 all the way round. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to meet you back at the beginning of round 11.